Okay, so get this, right? Big tech. Big tech going nuclear.
Hmm.
It sounds like, a headline ripped from the future, maybe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's not. This is happening now. We're going to be diving into the why behind this kind of unexpected energy trend, and trust me, it's a lot more interesting than you might think.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, actually, when you start to think about it. It really highlights how interconnected everything is these days.
Hmm.
On one hand, we've got this, like, massive surge in artificial intelligence, right? Which,
Ah.
of course, that requires a tremendous amount of energy to run all this stuff.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you've got this, like, global push for cleaner and more reliable power sources,
Right.
to combat climate change and all that. And so you've got those two threads kind of converging in a fascinating way.
They really are. It's like two sides of the same coin almost.
Yeah.
We've been combing through this New York Times article
Okay.
that
Yeah.
really gets into the weeds of all this. And it's really interesting. So to kind of set the stage for our listeners who may not be familiar,
Yeah.
data centers,
Right.
the backbone of the internet, right?
Yep. Yeah.
They're already massive energy consumers.
Oh,
Huge. I mean, they use a ton of power.
enormous. Yeah.
But with AI becoming more and more sophisticated these days, those energy demands, they're going way up.
Oh, yeah. It's not even a comparison. It's like,
Like, how much are we talking here?
well, think about it like this. A single rack of these new AI chips
Right.
can use like 10 times the power
Wow.
of a standard server rack.
That much.
Yeah. We're talking about like the equivalent of running a house full of appliances nonstop.
Like constantly.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's no wonder then that these tech giants, especially companies like, the big ones we all know, Microsoft, Google, Amazon,
Right, right.
they're all looking for ways to, keep their operations running smoothly, of course,
Sure.
but also trying to hit their, sustainability targets.
Right, right. Gotta look good.
Got to keep the planet happy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they've been, these companies have been pouring billions, literally billions of dollars
Oh, yeah.
into renewable energy sources, right? We're talking solar,
Mm-hmm.
wind power, things like that,
Yeah.
trying to green up their act.
Yes, and that's essential. And they've made, positive steps in that direction.
For sure.
But those sources, they have their limitations, right?
Of course, yeah.
Especially when we're talking about meeting this constant, like, unwavering energy demand that AI has.
Yeah, it's not like you could just turn AI off.
Right, exactly. The sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing.
Right.
But these AI algorithms, these data centers, they need to be fed a continuous stream of power. And so this is where I think things take a really interesting turn.
Yeah, you could say that again. This is where it gets really interesting. Enter nuclear power.
Yeah.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Nuclear.
Right.
Really? Isn't that, like the dangerous option?
Right.
Didn't we kind of decide that was a risky proposition a few decades ago?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and the history of nuclear power, it's complicated, right? There's been some issues in the past, but
Definitely.
to really understand why these tech companies are even considering this as an option, I think we need to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture here.
Okay.
For them, I think it really boils down to finding an energy source that's super reliable.
Okay.
It's carbon free, and it can keep pace with their like exponential growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're just growing so fast.
Right.
They
Exactly.
need something they can keep up.
Exactly.
They're not messing around either. These companies, they're not just dipping their toes in the water here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Microsoft, for example.
Okay.
They're making a really bold move by reviving a reactor at the infamous 3 Mile Island plant.
Wow. Okay.
If that doesn't say, we are serious about nuclear, I don't know what does.
I mean, talk about a statement, right?
Yeah.
They're essentially trying to like rewrite the narrative around a site that, for many people really symbolizes the potential dangers of nuclear power.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just Microsoft, by the way.
Correct.
Google and Amazon, they're investing really heavily in a newer technology. It's potentially less risky. It's called small modular reactors, or SMRs.
SMRs. Okay, we're gonna dive into that. I need to hear more about this.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
Okay, so SMRs, right? Smaller modular reactors.
Yeah.
Help us wrap our heads around this. Like, what makes these things so different from the giant nuclear plants that we've come to associate with, potential meltdowns? I mean,
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and
yeah,
you're right to point that out. I mean, the traditional nuclear power plants, they are these massive, huge undertakings, right? Often built on these really remote sites.
yeah,
They require years and years of construction, billions and billions of dollars.
yeah.
And, they're kind of notorious for cost overruns and delays and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Vottle plant expansion comes to mind, right?
Oh, exactly.
Years behind schedule, billions over budget.
Yeah.
I mean, not exactly a ringing endorsement for traditional nuclear.
No, no, not at all. And so I think that's really where the appeal of these SMRs comes in, right?
Okay.
They're designed to address some of those like inherent challenges that we've seen with these big plants. So instead of like one giant reactor, right?
What?
Imagine like a series of smaller
Okay.
modular reactors.
Okay.
And the key here is that these things can be manufactured in a factory
Oh, wow.
and then just shipped to the site.
So, like, it's almost like high-tech Lego blocks
Yeah,
for
yeah.
nuclear power.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of.
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It is. It's this whole idea of modularity, it offers several like potential advantages, right?
Like what?
Well, first of all, and this is huge, it could drastically reduce the construction time and the
Yeah.
costs.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right. Because you're not building this like bespoke thing on site.
Right.
You're building it in a controlled environment in a factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you just kind of ship the pieces and assemble them.
That's really interesting.
And then second, it gives you way more flexibility in terms of where you can actually put these things,
Okay.
right? You don't need this massive
Right.
lot of land.
You don't have to be in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could put them,
Near a city.
closer to where the energy is actually needed,
Okay.
right? Like these data centers that are popping up kind of everywhere.
They are everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
That's really interesting.
you could imagine a scenario where you have an SMR located literally right next to a data center.
Oh, wow.
So it's just providing this dedicated,
Dedicated power supply.
carbon-free power source 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. No more reliance on the grid, no transmission losses, just a steady stream of clean energy, just pumping it right into those AI algorithms.
It's a pretty compelling argument, I got to say,
Right.
especially for these tech companies. I mean,
Right.
they're all about efficiency.
Exactly.
So this makes a lot of sense. But even
Sure.
if these SMRs, right, let's say they are smaller.
Yeah.
Let's say they are safer to build.
Right.
What about, I mean, we got to talk about the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
What about the radioactive waste? Were they figured that part out yet?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
the thing that's, really plagued the nuclear industry for decades.
For sure.
And to be honest, I mean, SMRs, they don't eliminate waste entirely. Right.
Right. But some of the designs do offer potential improvements.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, certain SMRs are designed to run on like different types of fuel
Right.
that produce less waste in the first place.
Okay.
Or, and this is kind of interesting, they can even use existing nuclear waste
Oh, wow.
as fuel.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So they're trying to kind of tackle this issue head on, which I
Yeah.
think is encouraging, right?
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, how far along are we with this technology? I mean,
Yeah.
are we talking about something that's like years and years away?
Right.
Or are we like on the cusp of like a small modular revolution here?
Right, right. Well, that's where things get, I think, even more interesting.
Okay.
Because while it's true that, SMR technology,
Yeah.
it's still under development.
Okay.
It's attracting a ton of investment.
Okay.
And not just from these tech giants that we've been talking about,
Wally.
but also from governments.
Oh, wow.
And even like, billionaire philanthropists. Wait, are you talking about Bill Gates here?
I am talking about Bill Gates.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
I know he's really big on, tackling climate change, right?
Yeah.
But nuclear power always seemed like kind of a weird fit for him.
Right, and you're right. I mean, Gates has been a big advocate for renewable energy, right?
Yeah.
Solar, wind, all that stuff.
Right, right.
But he's also become more vocal recently
Okay.
about the need for like a diverse energy portfolio,
Yeah,
right? If we're
okay.
really serious about
Yeah.
tackling climate change.
Makes sense.
And he sees nuclear and specifically SMRs as a key part of that solution.
So if someone like Bill Gates, right,
Yeah.
who, let's face it, the guy knows a thing or two about technology.
He's not dumb.
Yeah. And he's clearly committed to sustainability.
Yeah.
if he's putting his money behind nuclear, that's gonna mean something, right?
It's definitely, yeah, it's a significant endorsement,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's also important to keep in mind that, not everybody shares his optimism.
Right.
There's still a lot of skeptics out there.
Of course, yeah. It's like we're living in the future, right? I mean, big tech,
Yeah.
AI,
Mm-hmm.
nuclear power, it's a lot to take in.
It is, yeah.
It's like something out of a sci-fi novel almost.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But not everyone is, ready to jump on board the nuclear train, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and it's understandable, right? I mean, the concerns around nuclear power, they run deep. And for good reason.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're talking about a technology that, yeah, it has a lot of potential benefits. We've talked about them.
Right.
But it also carries this, heavy weight of history, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't talk about nuclear power without thinking about accidents like Chernobyl.
Right, of course, yeah.
Fukushima.
Exactly, yeah. Those events were...
I mean, those really left a mark on the public imagination.
Oh, absolutely. And those images, I mean, they're seared into everyone's minds.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you reassure people? How do you overcome that?
It's a huge challenge, and I think proponents of SMRs, they would say that,
Yeah.
listen, these are smaller,
Yeah.
they're more contained.
Okay.
These reactors are inherently safer than those massive plants from the past.
Okay.
They have all these passive safety features built in,
All
right?
What does that mean, like passive safety features?
So that means that they rely more on physics and natural laws to keep things safe,
Yeah.
and less on human intervention, which, as we know,
Right, which can be unreliable.
exactly,
Yeah.
humans make mistakes.
Yeah, that's right.
So the idea is that, if something starts to go wrong,
Yeah.
these SMRs are designed to
Yes.
shut themselves down safely without needing a person to go in there and flip a switch or do something.
Okay, so it's like safeguards built into the design itself.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so that sounds promising. But I mean, is it enough? Is it really enough to change people's minds?
That's the big open question, right? And even if
Yeah.
even if the technology itself proves to be super safe,
Right.
there's still all these other issues, right?
Yeah.
What do we do with the radioactive waste?
Right, of course.
How do we transport these materials safely? Where do we store them?
Right.
And then you've got, the ever-present concern about proliferation. Right.
What's that?
Like the risk that these technologies, they could be misused.
Okay, so they could fall into the wrong hands.
Exactly. If,
Well, okay, yeah, those are all very valid concerns.
yeah, for sure.
Concerns that need to be addressed
Absolutely.
openly and honestly.
Transparently.
Yeah, for sure. So where does this all leave us then? It seems like we're at this really interesting point, this kind of like crossroads, right? On one hand, we've got this urgent need
Yeah.
to decarbonize, right? We got to do something about climate change.
Right.
We've got this incredible growth of AI, all this energy demand.
Yep.
And we've got this potential that maybe SMRs are this cleaner, this more reliable power source, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, there's these fears, right?
Mm-hmm.
The history,
Yeah.
all the baggage that comes with nuclear power, and then of course these real challenges that we still got to figure out.
Yeah. No, you've summed it up perfectly. It's complicated, right?
It really is.
There's no easy answers here.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this whole conversation, so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing the tech industry, right? Which we always think of them as
right.
being on the cutting edge, always innovating, pushing the boundaries. But even they are grappling with this this really, really old human dilemma. How do we balance progress with the potential risks, the unintended consequences? It's a tough one.
It is. It's a balancing act for sure. And it really does, it makes you kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the decisions that are being made right now, the technologies that we're investing in, these things have, impacts for years.
Generations, yeah.
For generations to come, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's like you said, it's a reminder that this isn't just some abstract thing that we're talking about. We're all stakeholders.
Oh,
and this affects everyone.
Yeah, especially as AI becomes more and more intertwined with our lives.
Oh, yeah, it's
You
everywhere.
got to understand where its energy is coming from. We
Right.
got to understand the choices that are being made to like power this increasingly digital world that we live in.
Absolutely. So the next time you're, scrolling through your feed,
Right.
looking at that latest AI-powered app or whatever,
Yeah.
just take a second.
Yeah, think about it.
Think about the energy that's humming behind it.
Yeah.
Think about those data centers that are just working overtime.
Working 24/7.
Yeah, it's more connected than we realize.
Yeah, they're completely intertwined. The future of tech and the future of energy.
Absolutely. And this whole nuclear angle, this is a story that we will definitely be keeping our eye on.
Oh yeah, this is just the beginning.
It's going to be interesting to see where this all goes.
It is, for sure.